welcome back to the Fallon Frequency, your space for that alignment, expansion, and of course, unstoppable energy. Now, last week, we dove into the power of micro and macro actions, how those small intentional moves that we make daily add up to massive energetic shifts, and what it really feels like to step into prosperity consciousness, not to just want abundance, but to be in the energy of abundance, to breathe it, to walk with it, it's just part of your being, becoming that version of you who no longer has to get ready because you already are. I touched a very little bit on that potency of momentum in that episode. So today I want to dive deeper. I talk movement, I talked about momentum in little bits, but I want to kind of go into it and share, of course, the frequency behind it. Because when you have momentum behind something, that is going to amplify everything it touches. And as we're about to enter this next magical month, I cannot believe that it is already freaking almost August. This is crazy. But I myself have been playing with this idea of setting new intentions, but also setting new challenges for myself. Fun challenges, challenges, expansive ones that are going to keep me growing, keep me in motion, keep me just in that playful frequency, because life is meant to be fun. And the way that I do this is, some simple things that you can shift. For me, it would be like shifting my environment, okay? So even, if you do work from home or a laptop or you're somewhat remote, working instead of from home, going to a coffee shop or changing up your own space. I love to work outside when it's not like deathly hot outside. It's like, I don't know, in the 90s here, it's July in Washington State. If you're not familiar with this area, it does get cold, but it's literally like ridiculous right now. But anyway, so I won't be outside, but I might be switching up what room I'm in. Playing with new routines, not because old routines didn't work, but because you're not meant to stay the same. And sometimes it's fun, and sometimes you discover new things about yourself. And even switching up things like your sports or your movement styles. If you're somebody that does yoga every morning, maybe shifting it, it's one of those things, like take it on with more of a playful energy versus like what I'm doing doesn't work. And I love to do that, shaking up the energy. Why do I do that though? It's really for me to kind of spark some fresh downloads. When I find myself moving differently, whether that be physically or emotionally or even obviously energetically, I start to think differently. You're creating these new neural pathways. I get new ideas, I make new connections, I break this autopilot. And I remember that, hey, guess what? I'm the creator. I'm the creator of my reality. And that is a frequency of momentum, of movement. And that's, I guess, what really inspired this episode. Why movement itself, both physical and energetic, is so pivotal to our growth. How the simple act of saying, like, I'm not staying stuck here, can really change the trajectory of your current life. If you're never stuck in a circumstance. Oh, that's what I'm trying to say here. Sorry. I had made some notes and clearly I must have written them too quickly. Basically, you are never stuck in a circumstance is what I was trying to get at. That is a complete mindset shift that needs to take place. And I think, a lot of people will get attached to this story that they've been telling themselves, like, I can't do this because of this, and I want you to recognize that that's what that is. It's a mindset shift, and it's just a story that you've been telling yourself and you've convinced yourself is the truth. The moment that we stop overthinking and we actually start moving, especially when it's imperfect, our energy shifts, okay? Whether it's moving across the world or literally shifting the way you see yourself, momentum is the most powerful magnet for aligning yourself with the right opportunities. This is, of course, I've done this many times, but how I moved across the world more than once and how those physical leaps mirrored the internal ones that transformed my life, that have changed my business, that have changed my relationships. And sometimes it's literally as simple as feeling or a thought, It's like this feeling that you don't even know what's waiting for you, but you know where you are right now. You don't want to stay there. You can't stay there. It doesn't feel right, That space is no longer serving you, and trusting that feeling and moving without the how. So, I've had this feeling many times, as you might know, if you've listened to me or know a bit of my background. I've moved countries, I've moved perspectives, I've moved energy. And you would see this all over right now, especially, or maybe I'm just in the wrong algorithm, but people are moving, it's like these really drastic, what looks like a drastic move, moving to Bali or Italy. Italy's a big one in my feed right now, or even going like to Portugal. Basically from the outside, it looks like this spontaneous life shift, like this undone moment, and I got to get to a new country. But obviously, I believe there's something so much deeper happening there. Well, I don't believe it. I know it. Why? Because I've had that experience. You're not just changing a location when you're making these big moves. You are rewriting who you are. It's one of those things like when you step into an unfamiliar culture where no one knows the old version of you, it's like you're finally giving yourself permission to stop playing small. You're giving yourself that permission to let go of stories and to become, because sometimes it's really way too hard when you're stuck in the familiar and this environment that doesn't support that version of you, right? Now, I'm not going to go diving deep into identity shifts today. I feel like that is entirely a whole episode on its own, but I couldn't not mention that because that's, it's kind of like this energetic unfolding. What happens when people they give themselves the permission to come home to themselves, this urge to go move to another country. Why? Because you're not you where you are. Every single time I've moved countries, even though the circumstances were completely different, the energy behind the decision was the same. It wasn't always, completely, let's say, about geography. Maybe initially that's what attracted me to Australia, the surfing and being on that side of the world. But it was more an energetic alignment decision. Every time that you make a decision, you are picking up your personal hotline. We all have a personal hotline to the universe. I don't know if you knew this, but we do. And every time that you make a decision, you're picking up your personal hotline to the universe, okay? If you're full of fear, if you're hesitating, if you are overthinking, it's kind of like you're whispering into the line and it's static. The line is static. Things are unclear, they are jumbled, or you can't find a signal. You're like not reaching the universe. But when you are moving with conviction, even when the fear is there, you're sending a clean frequency. You are saying, I'm ready, show me what's next. And the universe always answers clarity with clarity. If you're giving it mixed signals, you're gonna get mixed signals back. So you've really got to, I doubt any of you listening do this, but it's almost like that wake-up call when you have that victim mentality and you're like, you're just looking at things backwards, basically. Like, why is this happening to me? Or why is the universe, saying this to me? Or why? And it's like, no, what are you saying to the universe? Because it's just reflecting back literally what you're feeling and what you're saying. Now, obviously, okay, we're going to jump into, moving the countries and moving the energy. So believe it or not, as you would know, I've moved quite a lot. I was living on a super yacht, which wasn't technically moving countries, even though physically, yes, we were. But I was being pulled in and out of my comfort zone all the time, not on my turf. You're kind of in this weird, in-between world where the rules are just different and you're just a different person. It's actually funny that I'm mentioning this because I had a girlfriend of mine way back when from yachting message me last night, and she brought up a song that brought her back to some party we threw on the yacht, and it was kind of funny because I was like, fuck, I feel like that was a different life. That was just a completely different version of Fallon that did yachting. It was obviously a younger version of me, but just even mindset wise, I just was different. Anyways, I'm getting off topic here. My next move, as you know, the biggest one and most pivotal, was moving to Australia. Now, why I did it, it wasn't like because I had all the answers, that I had to do this, but something in me knew that where I wasn't it anymore. It was as simple as that. It was like, I know that I'm not meant to be here anymore, and I'm not being the best version of myself. I'm actually being the worst version of myself by staying here. I am numbing. I am like a robot. Like I was on autopilot. I wasn't joyful. Like towards the end of that, and I'm a very happy, joyful, glass half full kind of gal. And I just wasn't. And it was like really disturbing. Almost like this internal battle I was having is like, who are you? Like, you're not snappy. But anyways, basically universe is like, okay, girl, like it's time to move on. And why? Because this environment no longer matched my energy, it didn't match my desires, and it certainly didn't match my vision. It's like I had grown as far as I could there, right? I was stagnant. I was no longer growing. Those whispers from the universe, obviously, they started to turn into very loud nudges. And those nudges became a shove. It's like I had to get out of there. I was like quick to anger. It was time to go. Now, I have told this story so many times, but really I want to show you how I felt and the energy behind it. Was I scared to make these moves? Absolutely. But the fear itself was never loud enough to stop me. It was just there. I could hear it, but I didn't listen to it. I remembered, that moment I booked my ticket. It was so exciting, like a soul level, hell yes, we're doing it. And then, of course, I had to pack and all the goodbyes and the tears and leaving my family for the foreseeable future with nothing but, big dreams and a suitcase and a heart full and excited to go to Australia. But it was still scary. When I landed in Australia, it's like this wave hit me. I was in a place I didn't know. None of my friends were there. I did have a lot of Aussie mates from yachting, but they were all still on yachts. So nobody was there. It was just me and myself and my vision. And I was staying at this Airbnb and I was trying to ground into this new reality that I had created 100% for myself. And yet, of course, the doubt creeped in. Like, what the hell did I just do? I chose to live in the farthest possible point in the world. Like I moved, I remember even I think I remember called my brother once, saying how I missed them, or this was maybe during COVID and I wasn't going back because of the restrictions. My brother's like, you literally chose to move to the farthest possible place in the world. I was like, oh, okay, sorry. But anyways, the point of the story is like fear. I could feel the fear bubbling up during this time, right? And what did I do with that fear? What I did is I used it as motivation. I made a choice. Instead of allowing fear to take over, instead of allowing this fucking spiral downwards to happen, what did I do? I booked myself into a health and detox retreat. I decided, if I'm going to be here, I got to do it right. I got to clear, I got to get intentional, I got to drop in, I got to align my body, I got to align my energy before I start making moves. Now, given when I was going to Australia, I also didn't know what location I wanted to live in. I landed in Byron Bay as a starting point because obviously surfing was calling me. But that didn't mean that that was my forever place. It did end up being my forever place for many reasons. But I wanted, to align, like I said, and I wanted to get clear before I did start kind of traveling all over this country. And getting clear and making this shift where fear didn't let me spiral and just book a ticket back home is when things started happening. When we zoom out, really fucking zoom out, and make some big moves for ourselves, we're unlocking this next level conviction. This belief that it's like, if I made this happen, what else can I create? It's like the universe is watching and it's whispering and it's saying, she's serious now. When I moved across the world, I had a lot of friends comment and even family that I was brave. But I don't believe, I didn't feel like I was brave at all. I felt like I was just listening. I felt like I couldn't explain it maybe at the time, but I couldn't ignore this pull anymore. And the truth being is I had been communicating with the universe long before I had packed my bags for Australia. Through every moment that I stayed too long in what drained me, right? Through every silent thought or prayer that, like, there's got to be more. It's like you didn't even realize you were communicating with the universe. But if you're questioning, there has to be more. The universe is listening. And it's like every day imagining a different life. If you're in your reality imagining a different life, well, not only does that tell me that there's another life out there for you, but that means you're not present and you're not where you want to be right now. And it's like the day I booked the ticket, I sent a clear energetic signal. I am ready to vibrate higher. I am ready for the next version of me. And the moment that I did move, not just physically, but energetically, everything else does start to move. That is the clarity that comes in. That is the people that drop in. That is the opportunities. It's not about having a perfect plan. It's never about having a perfect plan in my mind. It's honestly about taking the action, making the decision, and moving. And, in Australia, God, man, I had so many growth spurts. So many growth spurts. I reconnected, obviously, with the ocean, which was, I don't know if I ever disconnected, but I really got connected with the ocean there. I fucking raised my standards. I started raising my standards in life. If you would have heard, which I will not go into, but sometimes stories from the yachts, I'm like, fuck, Fallon, you had no boundaries and no standards during that time in your life. I shared on my standards episode, if you haven't listened to it, you should definitely jump in there. But that time when I was working in a restaurant that I didn't even sign up to work in, but anyways, ended up working in this restaurant and being clapped at. That was like a clear, like, no standard, okay? And it was like, it was a pivotal moment for me. What else happened in Australia? I studied, obviously, the body in and out, the energetics. I love it. I love traditional Chinese medicine. I think those are the books that I used to read before I ever even moved to Australia. I love learning about ancient wisdom and what they used to heal, and nutrition and detoxing. I ended up working at a detox retreat. And mindset always, the most pivotal part of this is mindset. But even in my last stint there, running a Zentai Shiatsu wellness clinic, like all these things I would have never imagined myself doing, and it was incredible growth in Australia. Watching people transform in front of you is the most powerful experience, but at the same time, I was transforming too. And I think back sometimes, it's like, what if I hadn't gone? What if I let fear be too loud in those moments? What if I had stayed numb in the industry that no longer lit me up? What if I ignored all the signs? What if I would have missed, like, all the magic? I would have missed so much expansion. And honestly, I feel like I would have missed such a big part of me. Now, to zoom out again, looking at the bigger picture here, momentum to me is the magnetism. Momentum is moving this stuckness, this moving energy. The universe isn't responding to you being perfect. It's responding to you just doing anything at all, to you taking action, to you moving. It really doesn't care if everything looks perfect. It's like you are actually, and the perfectionism is just a blocker in my mind. It is a limiting belief that things have to be in a certain order for things to happen. Now, the movement itself doesn't always also have to be grand. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent here, but the movement is where things start to shift because you're moving that energy in the correct direction, but you don't know it's the right direction unless you make the movement, Sometimes just an inner energetic shift, the decision, that there's so much power in decisions. There is so much potency in making a decision, whether the decision is to go down road A or whether the decision is to go down road B, you make a decision. You're not staying in the fork in the road, The pulse, that's what it is. It's a pulse in a new direction. You don't need a full plan. Basically, you just need a pulse in the right direction. That pulse, it's like your call button to the universe. That that you're saying, I'm ready. Show me what's next. What magic are we going to create together? And if I look back now, like honestly, I think I've always kind of been in tune with this energy even before I had the language for it. People often think big decisions, like you've got to go the logical route. You've got to know like where you're going. You got to know the timing. You got to make do a chart, pros and cons. But if I actually look at my past and I look at all of my moves, not just from countries, well, I mean, I guess especially even my most recent one back to the US, it was never, I don't know, it was never like this pros and cons tactful thing. If I had followed a pros and cons chart, I guarantee you there'd be a lot more rational, logical reasons not to do the thing, and I guess that's it. It's never about like where I was going, where the destination was. It's about who I was becoming. It's always about who you're becoming. It's always about the journey. Moving back to, or not even moving back, just coming to the Pacific Northwest. Even though I am a Florida girl. I am from the US. It is my home country. But to me, it felt like I was moving to a foreign land. I have not or hadn't lived in the US properly in over 15 years. Okay. But this decision, like I said, it wasn't logic. It was just like this energetic pull. It was a full-bodied, open heart yes. A yes to a new level for myself, a new level of trust, a new level of intimacy, a new level of expansion to my growth, to my partnership, to the version of me that doesn't do things halfway. I've never been someone to dip my toes. I fucking dive straight in. And yeah, I've already had evolved massively in Australia. My God, like that chapter will forever hold some of the most important growth of my life. But I felt the nudge again, a deeper knowing, a universal whisper. You're ready for more. And when you truly live an unapologetic, unbelievable, expansive, no regrets kind of life, you listen. You listen when you hear these internal nudges because you're so connected to yourself. I didn't move because it was easy. I moved because I was anchored in this, I guess, energy of expansion, let's say. And the universe will respond to that. So of course, yeah, it wasn't perfect from the start either because I kind of was torn between like, what was I doing and was this the right move? But that's the point. It never is a perfect move. What matters is I still did it. I still moved and I still took action. I said yes to the unknown yet again. And the moment I did that, the universe moved with me. We are always in conversation with the universe. God, source, spirit, divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it. But we're always in conversation, whether you realize it or not. Every single decision you are making, big or small, or decision that you're not making, is putting off a vibration. It's sending out a signal. And that signal is determining exactly what the universe is sending back to you. When you are aligning with your choices of like who you actually want to become, that is when life starts to rearrange itself for you. So if you've been waiting for a sign to move, to pivot, to leave, to leap, to commit, this is it, babe. Maybe this is your pulse. And the moment that you do move, the universe will move too. It has to. It has to. It is the universal laws, okay? Now, what could that mean for you? Like, I 100% know this deep down in my heart that I'm speaking to someone right now who's been thinking about a change. Maybe they've even been obsessing over it, but you still haven't moved. And listen, I get it. I totally get it. Change can feel like complete chaos to your nervous system, especially when the unknown feels like a black hole. But this is what I know for sure. You would not be here listening to this episode if some part of you wasn't already craving what's next. 100%. I know some of you are shaking your heads because energy doesn't lie. This is why. This is why I know from my soul being, from my heart, from my core. You're here because your soul is already tuned into the frequency of expansion. If you weren't tuned into the frequency of expansion, we probably would not have found each other, and basically a lot of you are probably just waiting to be seen, waiting to see if it's safe to say yes. Maybe, maybe you're not the type to pack up and move across the world on a whisper from the universe. Clearly, that's more my jam. What I'm saying here is you don't have to move across the world to change your life. You just have to be willing to move differently, to disrupt the stagnancy, to choose momentum over the familiar. And if we bring it back to momentum, that is exactly what I'm getting at here. Momentum is where the magnetism comes in. Movement is magnetic. So 3 micro moves that you can even make just today to shift everything. I want you, babe, book the thing. Book it. Just do it. Whether that be the plane ticket, the course, the photo shoot, the thing that's been pulling at your soul, say yes to it. Say the thing, whether that be to yourself, to your partner, to your boss, to your audience. Like, what is unspoken is often what's stuck. What have you been secretly holding on to? And I want you, as always, to move your body. Dance, walk, stretch it out, shake it out, create literal energetic flow, and let that ripple through your life. And I want you to watch how the universe is going to rush to meet you. You are not stuck, you're paused. Sometimes literally just one bold flicker of a movement is all it takes to change everything. Now, if this episode lit you up, stirred something in your soul, or made you start questioning your next move, that makes my heart so happy. I am beyond grateful that we found each other. Like it, subscribe it, rate it, share it with your person, share it with a friend that needs it, tag me, jump into my DMs. I honestly love hearing from you. I love hearing what resonated. I love hearing the breakthroughs. I love even hearing what you're struggling with because I get a lot of inspiration from people I speak to. And of course, before I forget, big announcement this week. If you've been watching my stories or jumping on my Instagram, you would know that my next round of the Magnetic Mastery Mentorship is officially opened. This is a sacred space I'm taking only six driven soul-aligned women this round who are really ready to rise, to remember who the fuck they are, to move in alignment and let that momentum follow. It's a high touch, deeply personal, energetic, expansive space. We go all in on universal laws, on cleaning up your energy, honestly, in every sense. And I'm bringing your biggest, most soul-aligned vision to life. That is my passion. If something in you stirred, cracked open, or whispered yes while you were listening to this, that is not random. That is your sign. This is your space. That this is for you. Doors won't stay open for long. So if you do feel the pull, I want you to trust it. I want you to just jump into my DMs and have a conversation with me. You can find me at fallonmichaela.co if we're not already friends. DM me magnetic and let's have a chat. And as always, thank you so very much for being here, sharing your beautiful energy with me. I will catch you all next week. Bye.